Welcome to the office. Let's talk. So today I want to talk about one of the most important and often most overlooked skill that you can learn as an architect, and that's how to hold a design meeting. Because design meetings aren't just about presenting your drawings and talking through the different options. So mostly they're about building trust and having good communication with the client so that your ideas are clearly expressed, but also you're able to get feedback from them so that you can make the product better at the end of the day. And if you can master that, that's going to set you apart from 90% of the other architects out there. But rather than talk about it here, let's go down to the conference room and we'll just talk about it down there. All right, so every design meeting should have a purpose. It sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many young architects go into meetings without knowing what they should be doing, and they think their job is just to show the work. It's not to show the work, it's to guide a decision. What you're trying to do is to get information and get answers from your client so that you know where to go and how to move forward. So at every stage, your goal is to move the project forward and get input from the client so that your design can progress. If you can walk out of the room having achieved that, successful meeting. If you walk out with more confusion or a bigger to-do list, that's something wrong with the setup. So before the meeting, define what the purpose is. What are you asking them to decide? What do they need to understand to be able to make that decision? And what format is the best way to communicate what you're trying to get from them? And the preparation changes everything. So what you want to do is prepare so that it's clearly organized and it's not a scattered mess. You might want to bring a couple things. You want to bring your agenda, a written agenda of sort of what you're expecting to do, a large printed set. Most of the time inside the office, we work on half-size sets, but for the meetings, we'll try to print out a full-size set. Or more likely nowadays, if the meeting's in my office, we'll connect to a TV and share our screen so we can show the 3D model and be able to walk through it. And then also just a short list of sort of discussion points of things that you want to talk about in the meeting and hopefully the expectations that you're trying to get out of them. You want to keep it simple. Don't give them a million different options. Maybe show them the one or two things that you're kind of top of your list. Have those other items sort of back of your pocket so that you're able to pull them out if needed. But don't overwhelm them with decisions. Most clients, especially the ones that we're working with, this may be their first time doing the project, and the more decisions you ask them to make, the more fatigued they're going to get. So they're looking to you to sort of narrow the decisions down to the one that you'd like, get their input on it, and maybe make some modifications or present an option A, B kind of thing, but don't give them a million different options. One thing to also know is, especially if you're working on the screen, is to test your visuals beforehand. Is it clearly conveying what you want it to convey? Because a lot of times you'll get into the work of it and you'll be so caught up on the details that you don't see the big picture and you don't realize that your client doesn't understand exactly what you're asking of them. So the more clear you can make it, the better the results you're going to get. The next thing is you want to kind of set the tone of the meeting properly. So early in my career, I thought design meetings were like about impressing the clients, like showing them the really cool stuff that we can do. But really, it's about you listening to them. You want to set the tone that you're going to work together on this and that it's a collaborative process. They've hired you as the sort of trusted expert. And so you're going to give your opinion, you're going to give your input. But at the end of the day, it's their project. So you want to be able to work together and sort of give that impression that this is a team event and we're going to work together to get the project done the right way. You might, before you even start with the drawings, the little things that might make a difference. How are you feeling about the project right now? Is there anything that's been on your mind about the project that I can help answer? Little things like, how are we progressing with the other portions? Because for us, at least, most of the part of the project we do isn't everything. They're worried about financing. They maybe are dealing with sites selection and brokers and trying to find the right property. So those are the little things that might be worrying them, and you're there to sort of help ease their mind with some of that and give them some, feedback, but also give them a bit of help in feeling comfortable about it. So once you're ready to present, you're not just presenting the work, you're trying to tell a story. You want to walk them through why you did something and not just what it is. This is why we pulled the kitchen over here. We think this fits in this direction. We like the way this looks down here. That sort of gives them the understanding of why the decisions were made, which would help them make the decisions on whether they want to move forward with it or not. The other thing to keep in mind is that your clients probably have never done this before and they've not gone to architecture school. Maybe you've been doing it for 10 years. Avoid the jargon. Break it down to a level that they can understand without the technical terms. You can still use technical terms when you need to, but understand when you're using an acronym, they don't know what that means. There have been many meetings early on where I'm just telling the client, yeah, as soon as we get into CDs, we'll detail that later. And they're just sitting there like, what is CDs? You have to explain to them, CDs, construction documents. This is where we start detailing it a little more further. And you don't want them to sit there confused, because a lot of times they may be confused, but they're afraid to ask the question. So you don't want them to sit there feeling like they aren't a part of the process. They don't know a lot about square footages, but they may know sizes. So a lot of times in my meetings, I'll have a tape measure nearby and I'll say, well, this room is 10 foot wide. And I'll show them on the floor plan it's 10 foot wide, but then I'll say this room that we're standing in, that's 10 foot wide, just so you can get a visual of how big 10 feet really is. And be mindful about your body language. If they look confused or they aren't really following along, check in with them. Is there anything I could help you understand? Does this make sense to you? Could I explain it further? But the most important thing about the meeting is that you're trying to get feedback from the client. So it's going to happen, and sometimes the feedback doesn't go the way you want it to. This is where it takes the true test of patience to say, if the client says, I don't like it, that you say, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about what doesn't feel right? Or they might say, that's a stupid idea. You say, okay, I appreciate the feedback. What is it about it that you don't think works? I also try to not find clients that are like that. I find clients that are sort of team players and would never speak to me like that. So that's also part of the vetting process that you have to kind of work out as well. But 9 times out of 10, it's not about the design itself. It's just a misunderstanding or a visual mismatch between what you were trying to express and what they were saying. So sometimes you can just chalk it up to, I learned a lesson that this is the way my client communicates and this is the things they were looking for. Here's how I can sort of make it better in the next time. One thing that's really helpful is to take a lot of notes. You should always have a notepad. A lot of times I'll have a half-size set as well that I'll just write the notes on as well. And do that in front of your client, because that shows them that you're listening. I've had many bosses who've just sat in meetings and just lean back and say, yeah, we'll do that, but not take any notes. And it feels like you're not being listened to. So if you're actively sitting there, looking them in the eye and writing down notes every time they say something that is super important, that lets them know that you're paying attention to them. And then afterwards, it doesn't hurt to sort of write a short summary email of the notes you took, saying this is my understanding, because one, that shows them that you really did pay attention, you listened, you're also organized, but also it allows the opportunity for them to chime in if you misunderstood something. And that helps with the communication. If you said, from my understanding, we were going to go with a gray floor on this, and they said, no, I didn't mean a gray floor, I meant a beige floor. Then you at least know ahead of time before you've already gone down that road. So the other thing about the meeting is making sure that it ends well. Make sure it's very clear on what the next steps are. I always end the meeting and discuss, here's where we got to, and here's where we're going to be next. What's the next thing we need to move forward? What's the list of deliverables that we need to provide? And also setting the expectation for the owner. Based on what we talked about today, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to produce another schematic design set. And that's going to be about 2 weeks for us to get that together. That way at least they know sort of what they're getting into and they don't leave the meeting confused, not knowing what to do next. Also, give them the list of deliverables you expect from them as well. If you're saying after the meeting, hey, I need you to get me the list of all the office spaces that you need. I need you to get me a list of the material that you're storing in here. Make sure they know that as well, so they leave as well, knowing that they're part of the team, that they have some sort of responsibility as well. So holding great design meetings, it takes practice, but that could also be one of the most valuable things that you could learn as an architect. Because it's not just about the drawings, it's about building trust with the client so that they feel comfortable knowing that they hired the right person and they'll continue to want to work with you. If you want me to make a video on how to present the design itself, I could do that as well, talking about client psychology and visualizations and things like that. Just let me know. But For the most part, holding a design meeting is about setting your clear intentions and walking away knowing that you worked on this together. All right, that's it. Let's get back to work.